Okay, guys, this is going to be a very controversial video because people love to cut me up every time we talk about Funko Pops. So for the record, I'm going to give you some history here. Back on June 23rd, 2019, literally within a few months of launching this particular YouTube channel that blows my mind is still in existence in the year 2023, I did a video entitled Funko Pops equals Beanie Babies 2.0. And immediately, the Funko Pop crowd went nuts and started attacking me. I was getting death threats. I was getting angry emails from people. Literally, I could not keep up. People would send me emails that were like just 3 pages long of nothing but a rant complaining that I put out a unfactual video, that I should take that video down because it's a disgrace to the collecting community. And I stood firm. I shot back and I said, you guys are 100% incorrect in this analysis. And of course, since I put that video out there, there's been other individuals, without addressing me directly, that put out videos entitled things like, why Funko Pops are not the Beanie Babies of our time, or Funko Pops are not the next Beanie Babies. And a lot of these individuals, unfortunately, God bless them, they do not understand how the antiques and collectibles trade works. They do not understand business, economics, and finance. But they do have a passion for collecting, and they have a passion for Funko Pops. And because of that, I highly respect these individuals, though I do not agree with their assessment. And I'm going to explain once more, for the 100 millionth time, why Funko Pops are exactly like Beanie Babies. If you don't like that comparison, let's compare them to Pez then. So take your pick. We can compare Funko Pops to Pez, or we can compare Funko Pops to Beanie Babies. Either collecting category that you choose to compare them to, it's accurate. And here's why. There's a lot of individuals in the antiques and collectibles trade that seem to think just because something is linked to a popular collecting category or license, meaning if we look at Funko Pops, there's Funko Pops based on Pokemon, there's Funko Pops based on Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Disney, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you name it, there's probably a Funko Pop that was created for it. There's a lot of individuals that think that just because that Funko Pop is based on that particular pop culture licensing property, that means it's always going to be in demand from the people that collect that pop culture icon. So if we're talking about Funko Pops that are based on Batman, we'll pick on Batman in this video. These people think that simply because somebody is a Batman collector, they're obviously going to want to own Funko Pops that are based on Batman. And if those Funko Pops are perceived as scarce or quote-unquote rare, that particular individual will always be willing to pay a premium for those particular items. By that logic, no collecting category based on any hot collecting pop culture icon would ever end up in the bargain bin or on clearance. We know that to be false. If you don't believe me, look at Pez. There are Pez dispensers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to today that are based on popular pop culture icons. Super Mario Brothers, Nintendo, there's Pokemon Pez that were released overseas, there's Marvel Comics Pez, there's Star Wars Pez, there's DC Comics Pez, there's Disney Pez. Guess what? A lot of those Pez dispensers, based on those popular products, sell for pennies on the dollar today. And some of them were released 20 to 30 years ago, if not more. Right now, the entire Pez collecting market is in a downturn. As a matter of fact, it's a buyer's market. Even if you're going after most, not all, there's exceptions to every rule, but if you're going after most of the vintage dispensers that were released in the 1960s and 70s, guess what? They're on fire sale prices right now if you want to own them, simply because the generations that grew up and loved Pez moved on. The same thing will happen with Funko Pops. It doesn't matter if the company limited production on that one glow-in-the-dark Star Wars Funko Pop that people right now are paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for. It does not matter, guys. That is mass-produced scarcity. Funko Pops, Pez dispensers, Beanie Babies, Pogs, they were all a victim of mass-produced scarcity. And I can prove it to you. Because if you don't live under a rock, even if you just read CNBC, I'm sure you came across an article that goes something like this. Over $30 million worth of Funko Pops are headed to the landfill. Now, if these were very valuable and rare artifacts, how would that occur? How could that happen? How? Mass-produced scarcity. And that's what Funko Pop collectors do not understand. And trying to get them to realize this is next to impossible. They want to live in their blue-pilled matrix world where all this stuff that they're buying is going to go up in value. They could continue to park thousands upon thousands of dollars in this collecting category, not realizing that it's a bubble waiting to come in contact with a pin. It's going to pop. It's going to crash hard, and a lot of people are going to get hurt. And I hate to tell you, walk into any GameStop, and you're going to see a ton of Funko Pops on clearance because nobody wants to buy them. The collecting community has already started to move on. So today we are going to explore an article that first premiered on Kotaku. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And the article was written, I want to give credit to the author because I'm also an author in the antiques and collectibles trade. I write for Antiques and Auction News. The author is Ethan Gach, G-A-C-H. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Apologies, I'm horrible with names. So we're going to read through this article, and I'm going to give you my thoughts. And one of the things that I want to come to your mind while you're reading this article is the wonderful chemical vinyl chloride, because you may have heard about that in the news recently with the train derailment that occurred in Ohio. That particular chemical, vinyl chloride, was and is the primary ingredient in Funko Pops. So let's read through this article. The company that makes Funko Pop collectibles is in so much trouble, it's preparing to throw hundreds of thousands of its pop culture-inspired figurines into the garbage. Funko revealed the plans in a recent earnings call filled with so much bad news, its stock price fell off a cliff the next day. I'm sorry, Funko Pop collectors. You had your day in the sun, just like Pez collectors, just like Pog collectors, just like Beanie Baby collectors. Now it's time to pay the piper. Inventory at year-end totaled $246.4 million, an increase of 48% compared to a year ago. The company wrote in a press release on Wednesday. This includes inventory that the company intends to eliminate in the first half of 2023 to reduce fulfillment costs by managing inventory levels to align with the operating capacity of their distribution center. This is expected to result in a write-down in the first half of 2023 of approximately $30 to $36 million. Guys, that's nothing to sneeze at. Translation: Funko's warehouses are overflowing with 5-inch replicas of Machine Gun Kelly, I kid you not, Spider-Man, Pikachu, and every other vaguely famous cultural icon, and throwing them out will be cheaper than trying to sell them. So for all you guys that have been arguing with me now since 2019 that this is a real collecting category, I am sorry. You are dead wrong. I'm sorry that you wasted your money on most of this proverbial crap. During a call with investors, CEO Brian Mariotti, sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, you guys know I'm horrible with names, said a new distribution center in Arizona was so full that the company has been bleeding cash, renting out shipping containers to hold all the excess inventory. Do you guys not understand? All things based on mass-produced scarcity end this same way. Go read the book Comic Wars. At one point in the 1990s, Marvel Comics, yes, your beloved Marvel Comics, was bankrupt. Long before they were bought out by Disney. Marvel Comics also employed mass-produced scarcity in the 1990s to prop up the value of the modern era comic books they were putting out with hollow foil limited edition covers that they wanted to sell you. And guess what? In the year 2023, I kind of laugh at this, a new generation of collectors have discovered some of these items, and they reach out to me and they say, hey, Sean, I got this first edition Spider-Man comic book from 1990. It's got to be worth a fortune. I'm sorry, it was a victim of mass-produced scarcity. And what's very interesting, Todd McFarlane, who worked on that particular book back in the 1990s, before, or I should say, right around the time he formed Image Comics and created Spawn. He just did a signing for, I think it was CGC, where he signed a lot of these comic books. And it's funny, people are paying a premium simply because Todd McFarlane autographed their overproduced comic book from 1990. People are sending this in to CGC. CGC is making a fortune grading this stuff. And people are thinking that this stuff is going to have value now. I am sorry, the collectibles trade does not work the way you think it does. Your preferred collecting category does not exist in a vacuum, devoid of overall fundamentals as to how these markets work, let alone how economics in general works. Back to the article. Mariotti arrived just last year amid an executive shakeup following increasingly bad earnings news. Newsflash, Funko Pops are dying. The company is killing them. Collectors no longer care. The stock price cratered last November when Funko slashed its financial outlook for the year and fell by another 25% this week, as the company revealed it would also lay off 10% of its employees. Part of what seems to be going on here is that supply chain shortages, combined with extra income and time at home during the early pandemic years, spurred a temporary run on Funko Pop sales. It's not only Funko Pops that were affected by this. The entire antiques and collectibles trade was propped up by the free money the government was giving to not only every average Joe and Sally, but also the PPP loans. It's just the people that got the PPP loans, they actually had a brain in their head, and they went after the truly vintage and rare items that make up the antiques and collectibles trade for the most part, while the Timmies, Kimmies, and Poindexters stuck home went after stupid things like Marvel trading cards, modern era comic books, modern era sports cards, and of course, video games and Funko Pops. Now that the initial rush has subsided, the company has a ton of extra stock. At the same time, sales are dropping. It's also hard not to wonder if the entire bobblehead redux has hit peak market saturation. Newsflash, it has. We're now on the third season of The Mandalorian. How many more little T-green Grogus, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. You guys know I pronounce Boba Fett like Boba Fett, so I'm sure I'm pronouncing that name wrong too. Do people need? Funko Pop collectibles have long been propped up by a secondary speculators market, which tries to stay ahead of the curve on which release will end up being, quote unquote, rare and valuable in the future. Newsflash, very few of these things. A pair of Willy Wonka Pops recently went for $100,000. Please take the money and run and put it in a balanced, diversified financial portfolio devoted to mutual funds and ETFs. Do not spend it on Funko Pops. Do not spend it on modern era collectibles. Over the long run, 99% of Funkos are worthless outside of whatever depraved joy fans get from occasionally making eye contact with the ones lining their shelves. Let me read that line again, because this is what I've been saying all along. Over the long run, 99% of Funkos are worthless outside of whatever depraved joy fans get from occasionally making eye contact with the ones lining their shelves. I've been saying that since day one. You guys need to understand the overall fundamentals of investing in antiques and collectibles. If not, you're going to cut me up and you're going to make stupid videos where Why Funko Pops are not Beanie Babies 2.0. Why that guy Reserved Investments is lying to you, we don't know. Gee, could be something in the water. Maybe I'm drinking too much vinyl chloride in my water. I don't know. Maybe that's why I do this channel and I start talking truth to you guys and you think it's all lies. Back to the article. And now a ton more of them appear headed for a landfill somewhere in Arizona. Great. So now we're going to pollute the earth with these horrible products that were overproduced, that utilize mass-produced scarcity, that no one wants, that people do not understand how these markets work. May our future ancestors or the aliens excavating our civilization sometime in the distant future forgive us. And that was the best line ending of this article. Please understand, guys. If you spend any time in a dump, any of these main dumps where this stuff is being freaking pretty much put in a landfill, you're going to find there's already news articles appearing where Magic the Gathering was dumped in a landfill. I know Rudy with Alpha Investments have done some videos on that. I don't want to get involved in talking about that because I think Rudy already covered that pretty brilliantly. Other YouTubers have already started talking about that. But if you look at Pez dispensers, if you look at Pogs, Beanie Babies, Funko Pops, a lot of these products that utilize mass-produced scarcity, it all ends up in the landfill. And a lot of you guys kid yourself. You keep paying a fortune for these items. You keep pushing them towards the masses. And you think you understand the antiques and collectibles trade. Well, I'm here to tell you, you need to get a clue. You need to read some books. And you need to get educated on how these markets work. Because all you guys that cut me up over this, you're dead wrong. And by the way, I'm a consultant in the trade. I have people that reach out to me. They pay me money to get out of their stupid Funko Pop investments. Please learn from this. Please understand that if you are attempting to invest in antiques or collectibles over the long term or even over the short term, there's a right way to do it and there is a wrong way to do it. May I recommend that if you are attempting to invest over the long term, you actually go after the more valuable and expensive vintage antiques and collectibles that you may encounter, meaning comic books from the Silver Age, preferably 1965 and earlier. If you're going after sports cards, go after the vintage stuff from the 1960s and earlier. If you're going after toys, understand that the market for vintage toys and related collectibles is very, very fickle. Star Wars is a good place to start if you understand the risks and you go after vintage Star Wars products. These markets do not work like you think they work. You cannot manufacture a collectible. It's impossible to manufacture something that is collectible that has organic demand, guys. The market determines what something is worth, what the value of something is based on due to supply and demand. Just because you cut supply for a product does not mean demand is always going to be there. And that's the very definition of mass-produced scarcity. Please learn something from this. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. I will post a link to this article in the video description so you can read it for your own pleasure. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.